My name is Marguerite Holloway. Most people call me Maggie. I'm 73 years old, and until yesterday, I thought I knew my son. The digital clock on the gas station wall read 9:17 p.m. when Darren pulled up to pump number 4. We were heading back from my granddaughter's college graduation in Savannah, a 6-hour drive to our hometown of Cedar Mills, Pennsylvania. My arthritis was acting up something fierce after sitting in the car all day. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise or midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, I want to know. Don't just sit back, tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. "Ma, I'm gonna fill up," Darren said, turning off the ignition of his shiny Audi SUV. "You want anything from inside?" I nodded, my joints stiff as boards. "Maybe some tea if they have it. And I need to use the restroom. How about we both go in? Then we can grab coffee at that place down the road. It'll help keep me awake for the last stretch home." I managed to get out of the car, my cane supporting my weight as I steadied myself. The evening air was cool, stars just beginning to appear above the fluorescent lights of the gas station. "You go on ahead," Darren said, inserting his credit card into the pump. "I'll finish up here and meet you inside." The bathroom was surprisingly clean for a roadside gas station. I took my time, splashed some water on my face, and fixed my silver hair in the mirror. Darren always teased me about how I never left the house without looking put together, even at my age. Old habits from 40 years of teaching high school English, I suppose. When I came out, I browsed the small selection of snacks, picked up a bottle of water, and waited by the register. 10 minutes passed. No sign of Darren. I paid for my water and shuffled outside, expecting to see him waiting by the car. The parking spot was empty. A cold feeling spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the night air. I scanned the gas station lot, thinking maybe he'd moved the car. Nothing. I pulled out my cell phone, the one Darren had insisted I get last Christmas, and called him. Straight to voicemail. "Darren, it's Mom. Where are you?" The young cashier watched me through the glass with a mixture of curiosity and pity as I stood under the harsh lights, clutching my cane, my overnight bag, and my confusion. "Everything okay, ma'am?" he called out. "My son," I said, my voice wavering despite my best efforts. "He was just here getting gas. Did you see where he went?" The boy, couldn't have been more than 19, stepped outside. "The guy in the blue SUV? Yeah, he filled up and took off about 15 minutes ago. I figured he was coming back for you." I called Darren again. Voicemail. Maybe he's getting that coffee he mentioned, I told myself aloud, though the coffee shop was within walking distance. Why wouldn't he have taken me with him? "You want me to call someone for you?" the cashier asked. "No, thank you. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. He'll be back any minute." But minutes turned into an hour. Then 2. The gas station was closing. "Ma'am, we're shutting down for the night," the manager told me. "Is there someone who can come get you?" Who could I call? My daughter Elaine lived in Oregon. My sister had passed 3 years ago. Most of my friends were either gone or in assisted living facilities. I'd been living with Darren and his wife Jenna since my mild stroke last year. Something Jenna never let me forget was temporary until they found me a nice community. "There's a motel down the road," the manager suggested. I nodded, numb, as he called me a taxi. It was almost midnight when I checked into the shabby roadside motel, using the emergency credit card I kept in my wallet. As I sat on the edge of the bed in that cold room, staring at my silent phone, I kept thinking this must be a terrible mistake. Darren would never abandon his own mother at a gas station 200 miles from home. But as the sun rose the next morning, my phone still silent, the truth began to dawn on me with horrible clarity. This wasn't a mistake. My son had left me behind. Deliberately. What I didn't know then, what would take me days to uncover, was why. And what I would do about it. The motel room smelled of old cigarettes and discount cleaning supplies. I barely slept, jolting awake every hour to check my phone. By morning, there were still no calls from Darren. No text messages. No explanation. I sat on the edge of the bed in my wrinkled graduation outfit from yesterday, staring at the faded carpet. The digital clock on the nightstand read 7:13 a.m. 22 years teaching high school had trained me to wake early, even now in retirement. Think, Maggie, I whispered to myself. Think clearly. I called Darren again. Straight to voicemail, again. With trembling fingers, I dialed Jenna, my daughter-in-law. We'd never been close, oil and water from the day they married 15 years ago. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. Hello? Her voice was guarded. Jenna, it's Maggie. Is Darren there? He left me at a gas station last night and… Maggie, she interrupted, her tone suddenly gentle in a way I'd never heard before. Darren told me what happened. He said you had an episode. An episode? My voice rose. What are you talking about? He said you got confused, started talking nonsense about people following you, and refused to get back in the car. He tried for almost an hour to convince you, but you kept insisting you needed to stay. The gas station attendant even tried to help. The room seemed to tilt sideways. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie, Jenna. Maggie, she sighed, this is exactly what the neurologist warned might happen after your stroke. Memory problems, paranoia. Darren's on his way back to get you now. He left at 5 this morning. My hand gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. If that's true, why didn't he call the police? Or take me to a hospital? Who leaves their elderly mother alone overnight if they think she's having a medical crisis? A long pause. You know what, I don't need this. Darren will be there in a few hours. Just stay put. She hung up. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. They were lying. But why? What could possibly justify abandoning me? Then it hit me, my house. The 3-bedroom colonial on Maple Street where I'd lived for 42 years, where I'd raised Darren and Elaine after their father died. The house I'd reluctantly left temporarily after my stroke. I'd been talking about moving back home next month when my doctor gave me the all clear. Darren and Jenna had been oddly silent whenever I brought it up. I called my neighbor, Beatrice Wilkins. We'd been friends for 30 years, ever since our children played together in elementary school. She answered on the second ring. It's Maggie. I need you to do something for me. Can you drive by my house and tell me what you see? Your house? Maggie, where are you calling from? I explained the situation as calmly as I could, though my voice cracked several times. That doesn't sound like Darren, she said, confused. Let me get my keys. I'll call you right back. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Maggie, BA's voice was hesitant. There's a dumpster in your driveway. And a moving truck. People are carrying furniture out. The room spun. What? Who authorized that? I never. Jen is there directing everything. I asked her what was happening, and she said you'd decided to sell the house and move in with them permanently. Said the papers were all signed last week. My blood ran cold. I never signed anything. The only papers I signed recently were at the bank when Darren helped me update my accounts after the stroke. There was a long, horrible silence. Maggie, B finally said, you need to call a lawyer. Right now. After hanging up, I sat completely still, the pieces falling into horrible place. The joint accounts Darren had convinced me to set up just in case something happens to you, Mom. The power of attorney I'd signed during my recovery. The documents he'd had me sign at the bank, documents I trusted him with because he was my son. My son, who left me at a gas station 200 miles from home so he could empty my house before I returned. My hands shook as I reached for my purse, checking my wallet. $300 in cash. 1 credit card. My Medicare card. My ID. It would have to be enough. I stood up, my knees protesting, and began to pack my few belongings. Darren would be arriving in a few hours, expecting to find a confused old lady grateful for rescue. Instead, he would find an empty room. Marguerite Holloway might be 73. She might walk with a cane. But she had taught the Count of Monte Cristo to teenagers for 22 years. And if there was one thing she understood, it was revenge served cold. The motel manager raised an eyebrow when I asked him to call me a taxi, but he didn't ask questions. Bless him for that small mercy. My dignity was hanging by a thread as it was. "Where to, ma'am?" the taxi driver asked when I settled into the back seat, my overnight bag clutched tightly in my lap. "The nearest bus station, please." He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "That'd be in Fayetteville, about 20 miles from here." "Perfect," I said, though nothing about this situation was perfect. As we drove, I pulled out my old flip phone, the one Darren had replaced with the smartphone I'd left charging in the motel room. He could track the smartphone. This ancient Nokia, however, was invisible to him. I'd kept it charged in my bedside drawer for emergencies. This certainly qualified. I dialed a number I hadn't called in over a decade. "Curtis Bramley speaking." "Curtis, it's Maggie Holloway." A moment of stunned silence. "Mrs. Holloway? My God, it's been years. How are you?" Curtis had been my brightest student back in '92. Now he was a partner at a law firm in Philadelphia. We'd kept in Christmas card contact, nothing more, but I remembered how fiercely loyal he'd been as a teenager. "Curtis, I need legal help. It's an emergency, and I can't pay you right away." I explained everything: the abandonment, the house, the suspected financial exploitation. As I spoke, my voice grew stronger. Naming the betrayal made it real but also gave me power over it. "This is elder abuse, Mrs. Holloway. Plain and simple." His voice had turned hard. "Where are you now?" "Heading to Fayetteville. I need to get back to Cedar Mills without Darren knowing." "No, you need to go to the police first. Document the abandonment." I laughed bitterly. "And say what?" "My son said I had an episode." It's his word against mine. Who do you think they'll believe, a successful businessman or a 73-year-old widow with a recent stroke? Curtis was silent for a moment. "You're right. We need evidence first. Listen carefully. I'm going to text this number with instructions. Follow them exactly. At the bus station, I bought a ticket to Atlanta, the opposite direction from home. If Darren somehow tracked me to the bus station, he'd follow the wrong trail. Then I walked to the coffee shop across the street and ordered a cup of tea with my dwindling cash. Curtis's text arrived with meticulous instructions. First, I called my bank and reported my credit card stolen, not technically a lie, as Darren had stolen my trust and possibly my money. The representative sounded concerned when I explained I was traveling and needed emergency access. "We can wire money to any branch location, Mrs. Holloway. You'll just need your ID." Next, I called Elaine in Oregon. My daughter and I had drifted apart over the years, especially after she moved west for her environmental research. We spoke on birthdays and holidays, but little more. She answered on the fourth ring. "Mom? Is everything okay? It's 5 a.m. here." "No, sweetheart, everything is not okay." I told her what happened, my voice steady until I reached the part about the house being emptied. "That son of a," she stopped herself. "I'm booking a flight right now." "Where are you?" "No," I said firmly. "Don't tell Darren you've spoken to me. He can't know I've contacted you." "Mom, this is serious. You need to go to the police. Your brother has been planning this for months, maybe years. I need proof before I make accusations." After a long pause, she asked, "What's your plan?" I smiled, thinking of Curtis's instructions. "I'm going to disappear, gather evidence, and then I'm going to take back what's mine. But I need your help." Anything, she said without hesitation, and for the first time in years, I felt the connection between us strengthen. By noon, I was on a Greyhound bound for Columbia, South Carolina, not Atlanta where my decoy ticket led, nor Pennsylvania where Darren would expect. I had $2,000 in cash from a bank withdrawal, a prepaid phone Curtis had arranged for me to pick up, and the first spark of hope. Darren thought he was dealing with a confused old lady. He was about to discover his mother had been teaching strategy through literature for decades. Columbia, South Carolina greeted me with humid air that clung to my skin like wet cotton. I took a taxi from the bus station to a modest hotel Curtis had recommended, small enough to accept cash, large enough to maintain privacy. 2 nights, I told the receptionist, sliding bills across the counter. In my room, I collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion finally catching up with me. I'd been running on adrenaline and rage, 2 fuels that burn hot but don't last. My arthritis throbbed in protest of the long bus ride. The prepaid phone buzzed with a text from Curtis, secured emergency temporary restraining order against Darren based on abandonment. Working on freezing house sale. Call me in the morning. Legal language had never sounded so beautiful. I dozed fitfully, waking to darkness and the disorienting confusion of unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment, panic gripped me, then memories flooded back. The gas station. The betrayal. My escape. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. Too early to call anyone, too late to fall back asleep. I opened the hotel notepad and began to write, listing everything Darren had access to. The house. Joint bank account. Power of attorney. My will. The last item made me pause. 3 years ago, after Henry passed, I'd updated my will with Darren's help. Had I even read it thoroughly? Or had I trusted my son, believing a mother's love was enough protection? When morning finally arrived, I called Curtis. Good news and bad news, he said without preamble. The restraining order is in place, but the house is more complicated. Darren filed paperwork claiming you're experiencing cognitive decline and need supervised care. He's petitioning for guardianship. That's absurd. My doctor cleared me just last month. I know. I've requested your medical records, but Darren's already provided evaluations from 2 different specialists claiming you're in the early stages of dementia. My blood ran cold. I never saw those specialists. Exactly my suspicion. Mrs. Holloway, we need to move quickly. I've arranged for you to be evaluated by an independent neurologist in Columbia today. Can you make it to the appointment? After hanging up, I called the one person who might have answers about those mysterious specialist appointments, my regular doctor's receptionist, Nancy. We'd bonded over our shared love of mystery novels during my many visits after the stroke. Nancy, it's Maggie Holloway. I need a favor. Mrs. Holloway. Are you okay? Your son called yesterday saying you'd had some kind of episode during your trip. I gripped the phone tighter. Nancy, I need you to check my file. Has Dr. Winters referred me to any neurologists or dementia specialists in the past 6 months? Let me look. No, nothing since your 3-month post-stroke evaluation, which you passed with flying colors. Were there any calls from specialists' offices requesting my records? I heard typing. Yes, actually. 2 requests, both authorized by your son using his power of attorney. One from Dr. Abrams in Philadelphia, another from Dr. Liston in Harrisburg. Did I ever have appointments with them? More typing. Not according to our records. I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking with anger. Darren had been planning this for months, building a paper trail of dementia that didn't exist. The neurologist Curtis arranged was thorough, administering a complete cognitive assessment. 2 hours later, I had my results, no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment beyond normal aging. Mrs. Holloway, the doctor said, whoever diagnosed you with dementia either made a grave medical error or was deliberately misleading. I knew which it was. Back at the hotel, I received another text from Curtis, call this number. Someone wants to talk to you. The woman who answered sounded about my age, her voice thick with emotion. Is this Marguerite Holloway? Yes. Who is this? Vivian Mercer. Your neighbor Beatrice gave me your number. I think we have the same problem. My heart raced. What do you mean? My son-in-law is married to your son's wife's sister. Palmer and Jenna are siblings. The connection stunned me into silence. Jenna's sister had married Vivian's son-in-law? 6 months ago, Vivian continued, my daughter and her husband convinced me to sign over power of attorney after I broke my hip. Last month, they sold my house while I was visiting my sister in Florida. When I confronted them, they had me committed for a 72-hour psychiatric evaluation, claiming I was delusional. My hand covered my mouth. How did you get out? My sister hired a lawyer. But by then, my house was gone, and half my accounts were emptied. Mrs. Holloway, this isn't just about your son. It's about both our families. They've done this before. The pieces clicked together. Darren and Jenna. Palmer and his wife. A family business of elder exploitation. Vivian, I said, my teacher's voice returning with steely resolve, I think we need to compare notes. And then we need to make them pay. Vivian and I met at a diner near my hotel in Columbia. She was thin, elegant, with perfectly coiffed silver hair and pearl earrings, the kind of woman who never left home without lipstick. The hospital ID bracelet she hadn't yet removed from her wrist told a different story. 3 days in psychiatric observation, she said, following my gaze to the bracelet. Palmer told them I was having paranoid delusions about my money being stolen. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I believe you. Tears welled in her eyes. You're the first person who has. We ordered coffee and spent the next hour comparing notes. The pattern was chilling in its precision, sudden concern about our health after minor medical issues, suggestions that living alone was dangerous, offers of help with finances just until you're better, and finally, the exploitation. There's more, Vivian said, her voice dropping. Palmer and Jenna's parents, Walter and Gloria Kirkland, have been helping. The Kirklands? I've met them at Darren's Christmas parties. They seemed normal? Caring? Vivian laughed bitterly. Walter Kirkland worked in estate planning for 30 years. Gloria was a nurse at Cedar Mills Retirement Village. They know exactly how the system works, and how to manipulate it. My stomach nodded. How many others do you think there have been? Vivian pulled out a notebook. I've been doing research since I got out of the hospital. I found 3 other cases in the last 5 years, all elderly people with property or savings, all diagnosed with convenient cognitive issues, all stripped of their assets by concerned family members with connections to the Kirklands. We need to take this to the police, I said. Vivian shook her head. With what proof? They built paper trails. They have doctors' statements. We look like confused old ladies. She was right. We needed evidence, concrete, irrefutable evidence. Curtis called that evening with an update. The court has temporarily halted the sale of your house, but Darren's petition for guardianship is moving forward. They've scheduled a competency hearing for next week. I need to be there, I said. That's exactly what they want. If you show up, they'll have doctors ready to evaluate you on the spot. We need more time to build our case. Curtis, I said firmly, I taught Shakespeare for 22 years. I know how to play a role when needed. After a pause, he sighed. You're planning something reckless, aren't you? I'm planning to reclaim my life. But first, I need to go home without anyone knowing I'm there. The next morning, I stood in front of the hotel bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing myself. Vivian's sister was a hairdresser who dyed my silver hair a warm chestnut brown. Colored contacts turned my blue eyes brown. Vivian's makeup skills, from my days in community theater, she'd explained, subtly altered the shape of my features. I practiced walking without my cane, enduring the pain for short distances. The arthritis medication Curtis had arranged helped dull the worst of it. "You're sure about this?" Vivian asked as she drove me to the bus station. "It's dangerous." "So is letting them get away with it," I replied. "Besides, I have a secret weapon they don't know about." "What's that?" I smiled. "Elaine landed in Philadelphia this morning. My daughter has always been the family wildcard, too unpredictable for Darren to ever fully trust. She's our ace in the hole." 8 hours later, wearing a headscarf and sunglasses, I stepped off the bus in a town 30 miles from Cedar Mills. Elaine was waiting in a rental car, her eyes widening at my transformation. "Mom," she whispered, embracing me tightly. "My God, I barely recognized you." "That's the idea," I said, sliding into the passenger seat. "No one can know I'm back, not yet." As we drove toward Cedar Mills, Elaine updated me on what she'd learned. "Darren's telling everyone you had a breakdown and checked yourself into a facility for evaluation. He's got the whole town believing you're mentally unstable." I stared out the window at the familiar landscape passing by. Let him think that. Underestimating me is the biggest mistake he's ever made. The plan was simple but dangerous: return to Cedar Mills undercover, gather evidence from inside my own home, and expose not just Darren's betrayal, but the entire Kirkland family's elder exploitation ring. My own house looked foreign to me as Elaine drove slowly past it. The flower beds I'd tended for decades were already wilting from neglect. A "coming soon" sign was staked in the front yard, the real estate agent's smiling face a mockery of my pain. "Looks like they haven't listed it yet," Elaine murmured, continuing down the street. We parked 3 blocks away in the lot of a small shopping center. From there, we walked back, keeping to side streets. My disguise felt flimsy in the daylight, but we had no choice. We needed to get inside during business hours when Darren would be at work. B had told us Jenna visited the house daily to oversee the packing, typically arriving around 10 a.m. and leaving by noon. "It's 12:30, I whispered as we approached from the rear of the property, cutting through the Johnsons' backyard. "She should be gone." My heart pounded painfully in my chest as we reached my back gate. The familiar squeak of its hinges sent a wave of emotion through me. How many times had I promised myself I'd oil those hinges? "Mom," Elaine touched my arm. "We don't have to do this. Curtis said he can get a court order too. That could take weeks. By then, everything will be gone." I squared my shoulders. "This is still my house." We crept across the backyard to the kitchen door. I reached up to the ledge above the doorframe where I'd always kept a spare key, but it was gone. "Try the loose brick by the garden shed," I suggested. "Your father hid a key there." Elaine returned moments later, key in hand. Dad's hiding spots were always so predictable. "That's why I loved him," I said softly. The key turned smoothly in the lock. We stepped into my kitchen, and I froze. Half the cabinets were empty, their contents packed into labeled boxes stacked against the wall. The refrigerator was gone. My cherished collection of hand-painted teacups, missing. "They're erasing me," I whispered. Elaine squeezed my hand. "Focus, Mom. We're here for evidence." We moved quickly through the house. My bedroom had been completely packed up, mattress stripped, dresser drawers empty. The living room furniture was gone except for Henry's old recliner, which had always been too worn for Jenna's taste. "Check Darren's old room," I suggested. "They've been using it as an office when they stay here." The small bedroom at the end of the hall had indeed been converted into a makeshift workspace. A laptop sat on a folding table, alongside stacks of papers. "Mom," Elaine called from the closet. "Look at this." She pulled out a file box labeled Sunset Investments. Inside were folders, each labeled with a name. I recognized some of them: Vivian Mercer, Helen Dodson, Frank Withers, all elderly residents of Cedar Mills. "These are the other victims Vivian mentioned," I said, flipping through the documents. "Bank statements, property deeds, medical evaluations." Elaine was examining the laptop. "It's not password protected. They must not have expected anyone to find it here." She opened the email program and began scrolling. Mom, these emails, they're between Darren, Jenna, her brother Palmer, and their parents. They're discussing targets, that's the word they use, targets. My stomach turned as I read over her shoulder. The emails detailed a systematic approach to identifying vulnerable seniors with assets, creating situations to establish dependence, obtaining powers of attorney, and liquidating assets before the victims could realize what was happening. My name appeared in emails from 6 months earlier, right after my stroke. Target secured, Darren had written. Minor stroke provides perfect opportunity. Mother staying with us temporarily. Beginning phase 2. My hands trembled. Take pictures of everything, I instructed. Every document, every email. As Elaine documented our findings, I noticed a calendar open on the laptop. There was an entry for tomorrow at 10 a.m., final walkthrough with Sunset Realty. House listed by end of week. They were selling my home out from under me, and soon. A sound from the front of the house made us both freeze. The distinct jingle of keys, then the front door opening. Hello? Jenna's voice called out. Is someone here? The back door was open. Elaine looked at me in panic. We were trapped in the small bedroom, with Jenna between us and the only exit. Keep taking pictures, I whispered, moving toward the door. I'll handle Jenna. I stepped into the hallway, removing my sunglasses and headscarf. Time to confront the woman who had helped steal my life. Jenna's heels clicked on the hardwood floor as she moved through the living room. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding so loudly I was certain she would hear it. Hello, she called again, her voice edged with suspicion. I stepped forward into the light. Hello, Jenna. She screamed, stumbling backward into the wall. Her designer purse dropped to the floor with a thud. Maggie? Her face drained of color. What, how? Surprised to see me? I kept my voice eerily calm, channeling every villainous Shakespeare character I'd ever taught. Expected me to be locked away in some facility by now? Her eyes darted to the front door, calculating her escape route. I moved to block it. Darren said you had a complete breakdown, she stammered. He's been so worried. Has he? I smiled coldly. So worried that he left me at a gas station 200 miles from home? So concerned that he's selling my house without my consent? Jenna's expression shifted, fear giving way to calculation. I'd seen that look before, when she thought no one was watching, when she thought I was just a doddering old woman who wouldn't notice her contempt. You're confused, Maggie. Darren told me all about your episode. The doctors say your condition is progressing faster than expected. Her voice took on a syrupy, condescending tone. Why don't I call Darren? He can take you to get the help you need. She reached for her phone. I stepped forward and plucked it from her hand. Let's not bother him just yet, I said. I'm curious, Jenna. How many others have there been before me? How many elderly people have you and your family targeted? Her eyes widened slightly, a tell. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Then you won't mind explaining the Sunset Investments files? Or the emails detailing how you and Darren selected me as your next target after my stroke? A flash of panic crossed her face. You've been in Darren's office? That's private property. I laughed. My house, my property. Or did you forget that part? She switched tactics, her expression softening into practiced concern. Maggie, please. You're not well. These conspiracy theories are symptoms of your condition. Let me help you. The way you helped Vivian Mercer? Or Helen Dodson? Or Frank Withers? At the mention of those names, Jenna's mask slipped completely. Her eyes hardened, her posture straightened. Careful, Maggie, she said quietly. You have no idea what you're dealing with. No, Jenna. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I stepped closer. I taught teenagers for 22 years. I can spot a liar from a mile away. Did you really think I'd go quietly? That I'd let you and Darren steal everything I've worked for my entire life? From the hallway behind me came a small noise, Elaine shifting position to get a better angle with her phone camera. Jenna's eyes darted toward the sound. You're not alone, she realized. No, I said. I'm not. Elaine stepped into view, phone raised, recording everything. Hi, Jenna. Long time no see. Jenna's composure crumbled. You can't prove anything. It's your word against ours. Darren has documentation. Forged documentation, I interrupted. From doctors I never visited, about conditions I don't have. But here's what I do have, evidence of a systematic fraud operation targeting seniors, witness testimony, and now, I gestured to Elaine's phone, your own admission that you've been gaslighting me. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in Jenna's eyes. What do you want? It was the question I'd been waiting for. In that moment, I held all the power, and we both knew it. I want my house. I want my money. I want my dignity back, I said evenly. But more than that, I want justice, not just for me, but for everyone your family has victimized. You'll destroy Darren, she said, a last desperate attempt at manipulation. Your own son. The pain of his betrayal washed through me again, but I stood firm. Darren destroyed himself when he decided his mother was nothing but a balance sheet. I stepped aside, clearing her path to the door. You have 24 hours to tell Darren what happened here. Tomorrow at noon, I'll be meeting with the district attorney. What happens after that depends on what your family does next. Jenna snatched up her purse, her hands shaking. At the door, she turned back. You have no idea what you've done. I met her gaze steadily. No, Jenna. You have no idea what I'm about to do. After she fled, Elaine and I stood in silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over us. Mom, Elaine whispered, are you okay? I nodded slowly. For the first time since that gas station, I think I am. The Cedar Mills courthouse steps were sun-warmed beneath my sensible shoes. I'd abandoned my disguise, reclaiming my silver hair and blue eyes. My cane tapped a steady rhythm as I climbed, Elaine on one side, Curtis on the other. Vivian waited at the top, alongside two other seniors I recognized from the Sunset Investments files, Helen Dodson leaning on her walker, and Frank Withers with his oxygen tank. A small crowd had gathered, including several reporters from local papers. Curtis had made sure of that. Are you ready? He asked. I nodded, my throat tight. I've been ready since that gas station. Inside, the courtroom was already filling. We'd filed for an emergency hearing to contest Darren's guardianship petition, but what we were really doing was springing a trap. I spotted Darren and Jenna entering with their lawyer. Jeffrey Burns, Cedar Mills' most expensive attorney. Walter and Gloria Kirkland followed, along with Palmer and his wife. The family business assembled in full. The moment Darren saw me sitting at the plaintiff's table, he froze. I met his gaze steadily, refusing to look away. For a flickering instant, I saw the little boy who'd once climbed into my lap after skinning his knee, seeking comfort. Then his face hardened, and he leaned to whisper something to his lawyer. Judge Martinez entered, and we all rose. At 78, she was the oldest serving judge in the county, known for her sharp mind and low tolerance for nonsense. Unusual circumstances bring us here today, she began. We have a petition for guardianship filed by Darren Holloway regarding his mother, Marguerite Holloway, citing cognitive decline. We also have a counterpetition from Mrs. Holloway alleging elder abuse and financial exploitation. Let's begin with. The courtroom doors burst open. A man in a dark suit entered, flanked by two uniformed officers. Your Honor, he announced, I'm Special Agent Thomas Reed with the FBI's Elder Fraud Division. I request permission to address the court regarding this case. Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow but nodded. Proceed, Agent Reed. Reed approached the bench. Your Honor, the FBI has been investigating a pattern of elder exploitation across multiple counties. Based on evidence provided by Mrs. Holloway and other victims, we executed search warrants this morning at the offices of Sunset Investments and the homes of the Kirkland and Holloway families. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Darren's face went ashen. We've uncovered evidence of mail fraud, wire fraud, financial exploitation of elderly victims, and conspiracy spanning at least 7 years and involving 12 known victims. Judge Martinez's expression darkened. Are you seeking arrests at this time, Agent Reed? We are, Your Honor. What followed was chaos I'll never forget. The officers moved through the courtroom, reading rights as they handcuffed Darren, Jenna, the Kirklands, and 3 others associated with their scheme. Darren locked eyes with me as they led him past. Why, Mom? He asked, his voice breaking. Your own son? The question struck me like a physical blow. I rose from my seat, leaning on my cane. I could ask you the same thing, I said softly. Why, Darren? Your own mother? He had no answer as they led him away. Judge Martinez called for order, then addressed me directly. Mrs. Holloway, in light of these developments, I'm dismissing the guardianship petition against you and issuing an emergency order restoring all property and assets to your control, pending final resolution of the criminal case. 1 month later, I sat on my front porch swing, watching the sunset. My house was mine again, though emptier now. Many belongings had been sold before we could recover them. But the teacup collection had been found in Jenna's storage unit, each cup carefully wrapped and preserved, too valuable to discard. Elaine emerged from the house with 2 glasses of iced tea. The moving truck's coming tomorrow, she said, settling beside me. After 30 years in Oregon, my daughter was coming home, taking a teaching position at the local community college. Are you sure about this? I asked. Uprooting your life? She smiled. Some things are more important than jobs, Mom. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood children playing across the street. Have you decided what you'll do about Darren? She finally asked. The FBI had offered me a deal, testify against the Kirklands in exchange for a reduced sentence for Darren. As his mother, they'd left the decision to me. He's still my son, I said softly. Somewhere under all that greed and ambition is the boy I raised. I have to believe that. You're a better person than I am, Elaine murmured. I shook my head. Not better. Just older. Life teaches you that justice and mercy aren't always opposites. Darren would face consequences for his actions, 3 years in a minimum security facility, plus restitution to his victims. But he'd have a chance to rebuild his life afterward, to find his way back to the person I'd raised him to be. As for me, I'd found something I thought I'd lost forever at that gas station, my power. Not just over my circumstances, but over how I chose to respond to betrayal. In the end, the abandoned became the victor, not through vengeance, but through justice tempered with grace. After all, isn't that what mothers do best? We never stop hoping our children will find their way home. Thank you for following my journey from that lonely gas station to this moment of peace. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that age is not weakness, and that even in our darkest moments, we have more strength than we know.